Well, as the summer and the June outlook suggested, we are starting to see a change taking place, a significant change at that. Thanks for clicking on to the Wednesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope you're all safe and well wherever you are today. And if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button as well. I would greatly appreciate your support. The numbers have been terrific, both views as well as the subscriptions in recent times as well. So it is very much appreciated. This is an interesting tweet here by Shrine Bruin, based in Dublin, showing the UK June anomalies for both temperature and precipitation, as well as sunshine so far this month through the first. Well, I'm assuming it's the first 18 days of the month as opposed to the first 19 days, because today's data probably hasn't been collected just yet. But very, very notable, 13th coolest June for the month to date. And obviously, we've only got 10 days or so left of the month, with an average temperature for the UK of 11.5 Celsius. That's 1.8 Celsius below average when you combine the UK as a whole. Rainfall wise, it's near average, and it would not surprise me, I could be mistaken with this, but with a lower chance of seeing significant rain through the majority of the rest of the month, I would not be surprised if eventually we actually go slightly below average in terms of rainfall for the month of June. It's been actually a flip around from the month of May. Wetter across the north, drier across the south, and a little bit closer to average in between. Sunshine wise, it's near average as well at 161.4 hours, which is 94%. So rainfall 86% of average, so slightly below average actually, but not far off it. And it is the 13th coolest June to date so far. And Shrine goes on to say nearly 2/3 of the way through June, and it's quite remarkable to see such a cool anomaly like this for the UK nationwide with the mean temperature. The last time the UK had a month with an anomaly as cool as this was April 2021, which is quite interesting, minus 2.2 below average that month. And he also goes on to say that some of the recent cool summer months for comparison, June 2020 was -1, August 2014 -1.2, July 2012, infamous wet month obviously, -2.1, June 2012, no surprise, the same year, -1, August 2011 and July 2011, which were actually rather cool and wet months and summers overall. Another interesting tweet here by London and Southeast Weather. It was actually a repost from them that I happened to notice this, and it was an interesting one regarding the sea surface temperature anomalies and how we've seen a change taking place in recent times, courtesy of the upper air pattern. Unsurprisingly, with frequent cool northwesterly winds, this is Daniel at London and Southeast Weather saying this. Unsurprisingly, with frequent cool northwesterly Atlantic winds, northwest winds, the Atlantic waters have cooled off significantly around the UK or nearby the UK and slightly to the west, with a build-up of warmth over the central North Atlantic here. This is due to persistent blocking and high pressure over the North Atlantic, and obviously the northerly winds. Jet stream has been continuing to drive that chilly air down from the north. So he says that I'm struggling to recall a similar profile with the central North Atlantic Gulf Stream area is also very hot. I find the sea surface temperature profile quite inconclusive. It might be a good environment for further high pressure formation in the Atlantic and more cooler northwesterly winds in Europe later. But first, some very warm weather and predominantly settled weather next week. And this is the current temperature anomalies across the continent of Europe for the first 19 days of the month, and this is the next 7 days. Now, I must stress this, that I think this may be a little bit on the cool side, especially for the UK and Ireland here, because what we are going to start to see is a change in the pattern. We're seeing that already taking place, and I've highlighted for quite some time now the reasons behind this rather significant change. But if you notice here a close-up view, this is of the ECMWF, AIFS. You can see here that this is the change in temperature anomaly over the UK and Ireland as we progress through the course of next week. So as we play through this, you notice the change now starting to flip around from below average to above average temperatures, and that will be the mainstay as we progress, particularly into the latter half of this week through the weekend, and more so even next week. It would not surprise me if we see the first 28 Celsius or a higher in the UK so far in 2024. I think the highest temperature so far is around 27.5 degrees, if I'm right in saying that. I should have probably checked that, but I haven't. The reason, obviously, for this change is the 850 temperatures very, very high. We've got a strong, powerful area of high pressure that is residing over the northeastern United States, southeastern Canada, that is driving record breaking warmth all the way up into the subarctic region of Quebec. What that's doing is it's sharpening the thermal gradient over eastern Canada, tightening the jet stream. That is then roaring across the Atlantic. There's a dip in the jet here over the North Atlantic, and what that's going to do is it's going to pull the heat and the high over the Azores and build it up into the UK and Ireland. So it's essentially what's taking place over North America that is driving this significant change on our side of the North Atlantic here. You can see this really, really hot air across the eastern side of North America. There's a ton of rather cold air out of the far northern Hudson Bay, far northern Quebec. You see the tight gradient here between the very cold versus the very hot. In between, you have a strong jet. If the map will pull up quickly enough, I'm going to try and show you this exactly what this means here. Let's have a quick look and see if we can pull up the jet stream winds. So this is the jet stream exit in North America. Then we see the formation of low pressure along that jet. It looks as if it's taken too long to upload, unfortunately. Here I'm a bit disappointed about that because I was wanting to show you that. Let's go back to the overview chart here and see if I can pull this up here. I do apologize for that. So essentially what we're seeing is tight thermal gradient over quite far north over North America, but nonetheless we are seeing that taking place. The jet then extends out from eastern North America here. So this is the return of the westerlies that I've alluded to in recent days. We see a trough deepening over the North Atlantic, and what that does is it then builds the high into the UK and into Ireland here. Unfortunately, it's just taken a little bit too long to show here, unfortunately. So let's have a look and see what the 850s are showing off the GFS for the next wee while here. And you can see the transport of that warmth from the west and from the southwest as we progress through the course of the next few days here. So by the time we've reached Friday, we've got this kind of digging of the trough here to the west northwest of the UK and Ireland. That's then allowing a southwesterly airflow. We do have a frontal system edging in through the course of this evening and through tomorrow here, so it will be cloudier, it will be breezier, and a little bit fresher on the west coast. But further east, with southerly winds, with sunshine, we will see the temperatures respond. Low 20s across the south, upper teens around 20 Celsius across the north, and we will see the temperatures picking up day by day. We will probably see by the time we reach Friday a temperature of around 25 Celsius in the southeast of the UK. Then I think as we progress into particularly next week, we will see the temperatures continuing to rise further. So we notice here that we've got a little area of slightly less warm air moving through during the course of the weekend, but then keep your eyes closely fixed on this lobe of fairly warm air. Nothing exceptional, but this is warmer air nonetheless that is getting actually transported with that jet to the north across the Atlantic. It is weakening as it crosses the relatively cool waters of the North Atlantic, but it will make its appearance on the UK side of the Atlantic as we move towards the latter half of the weekend, and then it's as we move into late weekend and into early next week. You notice here that we've got this pocket of colder air, and we've got some fairly warmer on the south side. That is allowing the deepening of this area of low pressure. If we look at the overview chart here, you can see what I'm showing. We've got this development of low pressure here as it approaches the UK and Ireland here, and it's going to allow some fairly warm, humid air to its south and southeastern flank to then get projected and lifted north into the UK and Ireland, and this is likely to generate the warmest air mass of the year so far for the UK here. So back to the 850 temperature chart, you can see here this warmer air getting lifted up into the UK and indeed Ireland as well here. So there's a few question marks, there's details to get ironed out. There is still a lot of uncertainty, especially when you've got these collisions of warm and cold. Sometimes the models struggle to see how deep systems will develop and how much movement the air will make, north, south, east, west. It can be quite a complex setup here for models to kind of differentiate. But nonetheless, it looks as if we've got this warmer air mass moving in. You can see here that there's a slight slowdown in the eastward progress of this tongue of slightly less warm air. But notice here that we're now starting to kind of try and pull some real heat from the Mediterranean basin up into Central Europe and into the southeast and eastern side of the British Isles here. But this is a long way off here, folks. But it is warming up. It might not necessarily last forever, but nonetheless, it looks as if we could have a flirt with a hot end to the month of June, and there is question marks over the month of July to start with here, because if you notice, if we go back to the ECMWF chart here for the anomalies day by day, we've got these quite notable anomalies, +4, +5, even close to +6 Celsius in parts of eastern UK. This is the period between Monday of next week and Tuesday. So this is the 24th and the 25th of June. We've got some fairly notable warm air to speak about here. But notice something. As we progress through the latter half of next week and into the first few days of July, notice the model indicates a return of below average temperatures. And the reason why that is the case is it's looking as if the high, some of the models are trying to shift the high that builds in from the Azores. It tries to push it back west over the Atlantic, and we may start to see a return of the northwesterly flow once again. Maybe not as prominent as what it has been recently, but nonetheless, it looks as if this surge of summer warmth may come, but it may also get kicked back out as we step out of June and into the month of July here. So it certainly looks as if we are flirting with the hottest day of the year so far as we progress into the early portions of next week. The question mark is, how quickly do we see any sort of breakdown? I'm reluctant to say that this pattern, as the warmth, as the dry weather builds in, that it's going to linger for a significant amount of time. I'm not necessarily buying into that. I don't know if that will be the case, because you can see here the model quite clearly sees the cool now, then it sees the warmth, but it then sees the return of cooler conditions once again as well. So are we going to remove the minus 1.8 Celsius mean temperature anomaly for the UK over the next week to 10 days or so, and or do we continue to see that cool anomaly here? We don't often see it these days here in the UK, Ireland, or even many other parts of the world at the moment. We're getting so used to seeing above average temperatures. It's actually quite a rare occasion now when we see below average months in this era that we're living in. So anyway, I think that's it for today. Do like, share, and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.